Thanks for joining us. My name is Kay Adams, Kyle Brandt, Peter Schrager, Nate Burleson, all here, your favorite four, talking football headlines. It's National Bourbon Day. I do believe Aaron Rodgers drinks scotch, maybe some tequila sometime. We'll dig into all of that right now with the lead block.
Lead block. Lead block.
Lead block.
Never a dull moment, gentlemen. In Green Bay, really every day this offseason, we're always leading our show, always talking about Aaron Rodgers, who is officially a holdout after missing mandatory minicamp last week. And at an event on Thursday, Packers president and CEO Mark Murphy chimed in again on his quarterback. Here's what he said, quote, "I'm often reminded, though, of Ted Thompson. He often talked about Aaron, that he's it wasn't just Aaron, a lot of different players. He would say, he's a complicated fella. So I'll just say that." That's the Packers president and CEO on the reigning MVP. So, Kyle, what do you make of these comments from Mark Murphy?
What a crock, I would say. I'm doing reptile humor because I've been in Sydney, Australia for 15 days. That's the reason for my background. Reptile humor. My response is, yeah, Aaron Rodgers is complicated. So are you guys. I'm talking to the Packers. Unique company you have there. You do some unusual things, make some strange decisions. Isn't that why we're in this whole mess to begin with? I think there is way too much at stake, too much money, too many careers for everybody in this whole affair to just play nice the whole time. Complicated fella? I can tell you guys what that translates to behind closed doors, but I can't say it on the air. I will say this. I think this is just the beginning. This is a tiny, tiny little jab. I think the four of us are going to look back and say in August, can't we just go back to simpler times in June when it was just complicated fella? This is step one. This reminds me of the movie trope where someone's going to turn state's evidence or, cooperate with the DA's office. There's always that moment where someone sits them down and says, are you really ready for this? Because the gloves are going to come off. It's going to get hairy. There's going to be mud thrown. They're going to look into your background. They have to say yes. Just wait. We get into July. That camp countdown starts ticking. There'll be leaks. There'll be crazy reports about him as a teammate. There'll be anonymous teammates saying, we think we can accomplish all our goals with Jordan Love. This is how you wage war. And it may get to that. We're not at war yet, but we're marching, and that little drummer boy's starting to play. Complicated fella is what you call saber rattling. And I think we're in for a lot more of it because I think they're both dug in. Nate, respectfully, I think of you as a relatively uncomplicated person. Can you make sense of it?
I feel like this adds another layer to this drama, to what we look at as a relationship going sour. It's one thing for him to say that the situation is complicated. It's one thing for him to say, I don't know, the New England Patriots playbook is complicated. My relationship status is complicated. But putting together IKEA furniture is complicated. Arithmetic in middle school is complicated. But to say somebody else is complicated, that is almost shifting the blame and saying, okay, I know that we have messed up before. I know that we have made some unorthodox decisions that not only Aaron Rodgers, but maybe football fans at large don't agree with. But he's also complicated as well. I do believe this is a little bit of posturing from the organization, and we don't know who's right. We don't know who's wrong. Listen, Aaron Rodgers could be the most complicated person they've ever worked with. Aaron Rodgers could be difficult. I don't know. All I know about Aaron Rodgers is when I played against him, I thought he was incredible. When I met him, I thought he was awesome. But I've never worked with Aaron Rodgers. I've never sat inside a locker room with Aaron Rodgers. I've never cut Aaron Rodgers a check and had expectations for him and him not show up for work. So I don't know. I can't call him a liar. What I do know is with him saying that Aaron Rodgers, not just the situation is complicated, that does mean this is going to continue a lot longer than I previously thought. You're right about that, KB.
I just think every word matters now. We're in the point of the game where it's like, if any of these people talk on the record, we're going to dissect it. Not just our show, everybody in the media. So you have this quiet weekend of NFL where the mini camps kind of took a back seat and, okay, other sports are taking the spotlight. He goes on NBC 26 and calls the greatest quarterback in the league, the MVP, a complicated fella. It's condescending. It's patronizing. It's an unforced error. We watched a lot of tennis this week with the French Open wrapping up out there in Roland Garros, and this is one of those deals. It's a self-inflicted wound. to have an unfortunate, every word is going to be dissected. So why would you then do this? Why would you say those words? And it almost comes off as non-self-aware, and it almost makes you want to sympathize or empathize with Rodgers, saying, this is what I'm dealing with, guys. He knows the score. He knows that I'm not there, and still thinks it's okay to call me a complicated fella on the record. Look, I'm not a PR man. I don't think this was sifted through the public relations channels, but when you go on the record and you speak, and I know in context you could say, well, he was talking about how Ted Thompson used to talk. Doesn't matter. The words were complicated fella, and you're dealing with a quarterback who's the reigning MVP, who's having a standoff and a war of public opinion where a lot of people are like, can Rodgers get over himself? Can Rodgers just be the bigger man? And then you see something like that, and imagine your boss. Imagine the person that you work for went on the record and publicly called you a complicated lady or a complicated fella. And especially when things aren't going smoothly. I don't know other ways you can take that. Unforced error, another one from the Packers front office. And I feel for LaFleur the most because here's Matt LaFleur trying to patch together a season, trying to rebuild things with Rodgers, trying to make sure that Aaron knows, I respect you so much and I want you on this field and we need you so badly this season if we're going to compete for a Super Bowl. But now it's another thing that Matt LaFleur needs to overcome, and it's another obstacle that these players have to overcome. And it's not going to help make a bridge any easier for the Packers and Rodgers. Complicated fella. Just say, I don't plan on speaking on the record on Rodgers if you're going to do any media at all. Complicated fella. That's what we wake up with this morning.
Yes, nothing good can come of it. That's for sure. Nate, I ask you, there's a threshold for being complicated. If you have transcendental talent, or if you're even in like a dating relationship, why do you want to put up with this? She's complicated. But because she's amazing and there's all these great things. There's a threshold for talent. We're seeing it a little bit with Le'Veon Bell. He was getting major deals. He's always been vocal, wanting to do other things. I'm not comparing the two talent-wise even, but he was getting now he's not getting those big deals. Now he's in the headlines again today. We'll talk about it in a bit. Does it matter even if he is complicated? You touched on it a little bit. Let's say he is. Does it even matter?
Bill Cowher said something about week 2 or 3 of this past season. We were sitting back during a commercial break, and we were talking about some of the superstar players that found themselves on different teams because they couldn't coexist with the current management of the squads they were on, even coexist with other teammates. And he said something pretty profound. He said, toleration depends on the talent that the player has. Let me say that again. Toleration depends on the talent that the player has. So if a player is extremely talented, you'll tolerate anything. I mean, you'll let anything slide. I've said it time and time again. If Calvin Johnson was the worst person in the world, I probably would let it slide because we needed him on the Detroit Lions. It just so happened that Calvin Johnson was talented and he had humility and he was a great person. But when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, he's not a cancer in the locker room. And we know that he is a talented dude, but what we don't know is what Aaron Rodgers' role is in all of this. We can assume and say that Aaron Rodgers just wants to help out and make some better decisions for this front office. Okay, that's fine. But we're on the outside. Let's be honest about that. Aaron Rodgers could also be very, very complicated to work with. And after them guys reaching out to Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Rodgers not reaching back, maybe they're just saying, we're waiting for him to make the next move because we've been making them since all of this started.
But difficult to work with. Go ahead then and just get yourself a nice, simple boy next door who always has everything to say and golly gee this and golly gee that, and you'll go 8-9 every single year. Of course it's complicated. Of course that has everything to do with Rodgers' talent. And I think Peter's right. I think it is extremely patronizing term. It is an unforced error. It's just a simple forehand right over the net, and they buried the thing. Complicated fella is a thinly veiled euphemism for pain in the bleep. And I guarantee that and other phrases are being thrown around all the time. You know what's not complicated in any way? The results. Results are very simple. Spotless, clean. Playoffs every year. Win every year. MVP. Yeah, maybe he's a little cerebral. And maybe he's the smartest guy in the room and lets you know it. Yeah, but then his 3rd and 9 is no problem. Yes. This is why this is fascinating, because he is the best player in the world, and they're over it, and they're pot-shotting it. And it's crazy because they're complicated too.
In a vacuum, complicated isn't a terrible term, but in this scenario, it is
Yeah.
such a terrible term to use because it's public opinion and it's, well, why is Rodgers unhappy? Why is Rodgers? You put yourself in Rodgers' shoes. You're not saying anything publicly. People are doing it for you, and then the mom and pop, like small town, like aw shucks, he's a complicated fella thing. It really, really burns, and it's the kind of thing. Well, that's what I'm dealing with over here. So just so you know, while there's other organizations that are catering to their superstars and treating them amazingly and drafting them great players and asking their input on picks, my guy, as the reigning MVP, I'm 38 years old, he's calling me a complicated fellow with a wink to the local market. Like, I could see it in a vacuum not being such a bad term, but in the context, not a good thing to say and not a good way to start a Monday morning for the Packers fans.
Schrags, if you were a media consultant, not for the Packers, you said what you think about, what they said and what they should do. What would you tell Aaron Rodgers? To just stay quiet? What would you be advising him these next couple of weeks?
Your move now, Rodgers, right? And I would just lay low. And there's a couple of weeks until he's got to be there, and mandatory minicamps becomes training camp. But I don't think he needs to say anything, especially if the opposition in this case is the one salvaging words and saying things that are going to put them in a bad position publicly.
And away we